The story of modern Balochistan is deeply connected to the actions of powerful empires in the 19th century. During this time, both the British Empire and Persia, which is now Iran, saw the region as strategically important for their own goals. They decided to draw lines on the map, effectively splitting the traditional Baloch lands into different territories without consulting the people who lived there. This division created a western part under Persian control and an eastern part that fell under British influence. This act of partition laid the groundwork for many of the conflicts and struggles that would define Balochistan's history for more than a century, creating a legacy of division and foreign control that the Baloch people would continuously resist. The Baloch people did not quietly accept this foreign domination over their homeland. Across the newly drawn borders, leaders rose up to challenge the authority of both British and Persian rulers. In the western part of Balochistan, a significant uprising was led by Sardar Hussein Narui Balak, who fought bravely against Persian forces. However, his rebellion was eventually crushed by a combined Anglo-Persian military campaign, showing how the two empires worked together to maintain their control. These early revolts were a clear sign that the Baloch people valued their independence and were willing to fight to protect their land and way of life from outside interference, setting a precedent for future generations. On the eastern side, the British established a formal administrative area called the Balochistan Agency in 1877. This move was part of a larger British strategy to manage the region and its people. A key figure in this period was Colonel Sir Robert Groves Sandeman, who introduced a system of so-called tribal pacification. His methods involved working with local tribal leaders, or Sardars, to maintain peace and order. While some historians see this as a clever way to govern, others argue it was a form of indirect rule that deepened British control. The British also became heavily involved in the politics of the Khanate of Kalat, the most powerful Baloch state, even attacking it in 1839 and killing its ruler, Mir Merab Khan. This interference in local affairs continued to shape the region's political landscape. The British installed a new ruler in Kalat, who was more friendly to their interests, effectively turning the once sovereign state into a princely state within the British Indian Empire. This loss of autonomy was a major point of bitterness for the Baloch leadership. Even in the early 20th century, leaders like Mir Dost Muhammad Khan Baluch tried to reclaim their independence, with Mir Dost even declaring himself the Shah-e-Balochistan in 1920. Sadly, his efforts were also suppressed by Persian forces, and he was executed in 1928, marking another tragic chapter in the long and difficult struggle for Baloch self-rule. The early 20th century brought a new kind of change to Balochistan as political awareness began to grow among its people. Inspired by movements elsewhere in British India, Baloch leaders started forming their own political organizations during the 1930s. Groups like the Anjuman-e-Ittihadi Baluchan and the Kalat State National Party emerged, advocating for the rights and interests of the Baloch people. These parties wanted more say in how their land was governed and sought to protect their unique culture and identity. This period marked the beginning of a more organized and modern political struggle, moving beyond armed uprisings to include debates, negotiations, and the formation of political parties that could represent Baloch interests on a larger stage. As the movement for an independent Pakistan gained momentum, it also found supporters in Balochistan. The Balochistan Muslim League was created in 1939 by Qazi Muhammad Isa, who worked to connect the Baloch cause with the larger goals of the All India Muslim League, led by Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Jinnah himself visited the region in 1943 and 1945, hoping to persuade the Baloch people that their future would be more secure within a new Muslim state. His visits helped increase support for the idea of Pakistan, especially among students and a new generation of political activists. The promise of a homeland for Muslims resonated with many, who believed it offered a better alternative to remaining under British or Hindu majority rule. When the time came for the partition of British India in 1947, the process of Balochistan joining Pakistan was complex and controversial. On June 29, 1947, a vote was held to decide the region's future. A group of tribal leaders, known as the Shahi Jirga and the Quetta municipality, voted to join Pakistan. However, this decision has been criticized by many historians and Baloch nationalists. They point out that representatives from the Khanate of Kalat, the largest and most significant Baloch state, were not allowed to participate in the vote. This exclusion has led to lasting questions about whether the decision truly represented the will of all the Baloch people, creating a sense of grievance from the very beginning. The ruler of Kalat, Khan Ahmad Yar Khan, had his own vision for the future. He argued that Kalat was a sovereign state with a distinct treaty relationship with the British, and therefore it should become fully independent after the British left. For a brief period, Kalat did enjoy a status of independence. However, the new country of Pakistan put immense pressure on the Khan. In a strategic move, Pakistan allowed Kalat's smaller territories, Lasbela, Karan and Makran, to join Pakistan separately in March 1948. This left the Khanate of Kalat landlocked and politically isolated. Faced with this pressure and after hearing a misleading radio report, the Khan of Kalat officially acceded to Pakistan on March 27, 1948, ending Balochistan's brief dream of independence. The accession to Pakistan did not bring peace to Balochistan. Instead, it marked the beginning of a series of conflicts and insurgencies that have continued for decades. The very first armed uprising occurred almost immediately in 1948. It was led by Prince Abdul Karim, the brother of the Khan of Kalat, who refused to accept the accession and launched a revolt from Afghanistan. Although his rebellion was small, and he eventually surrendered in 1950, it was a powerful symbol of the deep-seated discontent. This first conflict showed that many Baloch people felt their right to self-determination had been denied, and that they were willing to use force to resist what they saw as an occupation of their homeland by the new Pakistani state. A second major conflict erupted a decade later, from 1958 to 1959. This uprising was a direct response to Pakistan's one-unit policy, which merged all the provinces of West Pakistan, including Balochistan, into a single administrative unit. Many Baloch leaders saw this as an attempt to erase their distinct provincial identity and centralize power in a way that ignored their interests. A respected tribal elder, Nawab Nauroz Khan, led a guerrilla war against the government. He was eventually persuaded to negotiate but was arrested through deception. Tragically, several of his family members were executed and he died while in prison, becoming a martyr for the Baloch cause and deepening the mistrust between the Baloch people and the state. The 1960s saw yet another insurgency, this time driven by economic grievances. The discovery of vast natural gas reserves at Sui in Balochistan in the 1950s should have brought wealth to the region. However, the revenue generated from the gas fields was largely sent to other parts of Pakistan, while Balochistan itself remained one of the poorest and least developed areas. From 1963 to 1969, a leader named Sher Muhammad Bijrani Mari led an armed struggle demanding a fair share of the profits from these resources. This conflict ended with a ceasefire in 1969, and in 1970, Balochistan was finally granted the status of a full province, giving some hope for greater political autonomy. This hope was short-lived. The most intense and widespread conflict to date broke out between 1973 and 1977. After winning provincial elections, a nationalist government was formed in Balochistan, but it was dismissed by Pakistan's Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto in 1973. This act was seen as a direct attack on Baloch democratic rights and triggered a massive insurgency led by the Balochistan People's Liberation Front, or BPLF. The Pakistani military launched a major operation to crush the rebellion with assistance from Iran. The fighting was brutal, and resulted in thousands of casualties on both sides, leaving a deep and painful scar on the collective memory of the Baloch people. The turn of the 21st century saw the beginning of a fifth and still ongoing insurgency in Balochistan. This new wave of conflict started around 2004 and became much more intense after the killing of a prominent Baloch leader, Nawab Akbar Bugti, in a military operation in 2006. This event angered many Baloch and fueled the fire of rebellion. The modern conflict is driven by the same historical grievances, a feeling of political marginalization, the exploitation of the region's rich natural resources like gas and minerals with little benefit for the local population, and serious concerns about human rights abuses, including the issue of enforced disappearances, where people are taken away without any legal process. Today, the situation remains complicated. There is a wide range of opinions among the Baloch people about what the future should hold. Most people in the province feel strongly that they deserve greater provincial autonomy, meaning more control over their own affairs, resources, and governance. They want their language and culture to be respected and protected, and they want to see economic development that actually benefits their communities. However, it is important to understand that, while the desire for more rights is widespread, scientific surveys conducted in the past have suggested that a majority of the Baloch population does not support the idea of complete independence from Pakistan, preferring a solution within the existing federal structure. Recent years have seen a dangerous escalation in violence. Insurgent groups like the Balochistan Liberation Army, or BLA, have become more sophisticated in their attacks, targeting state security forces, important infrastructure projects, and non-Baloch civilians. A major focus of these attacks has been on projects related to the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or CPE, which the insurgents see as another form of resource exploitation by outsiders. These attacks have included coordinated assaults and even suicide bombings, a tactic that has become more common since 2024. This increasing violence has made the region more unstable and the path to a peaceful resolution much more difficult to find. Understanding Balochistan's history is crucial for understanding the challenges it faces today. The story of its division, the repeated uprisings against foreign and central control, the struggle over resources, and the deep-seated desire for dignity and autonomy are not just events from the past, they directly shape the present-day conflict and the feelings of the Baloch people. The history of struggle and resilience explains why there is so much mistrust and why calls for rights and self-governance continue to echo through its mountains and valleys. For any lasting peace to be achieved, these historical grievances must be acknowledged and addressed with justice and respect for the people of Balochistan.